welcome to the Wednesday, the 2nd of August update for all the up-to-date Celtic news, transfer, gossip, and also going to do today predictions for the new season, the 1 to 12 placings in the Scottish League, in the Premier League, having a look about likely Celtic team for the first game against Ross County this Saturday at 12:30, and also exploring some of the transfer rumours still circulating around Celtic Park and Lanarkstown. Of course, last night was James Forrest's testimonial, a 3-2 victory in the end over Athletic Bilbao. Strange game, game of two halves, as they say, in all the cliches. First half, what looked like probably Celtic's stronger side going out, actually but being 2-1 down at half time. However, 11 changes in the second half, 10 all at half time, and then Forrest going off at 49 minutes as per his shirt number, to a tremendous ovation. Celtic made a good comeback in the second half and in the end won 3-2 with a special goal by Bernabé, the Argentinian left back, who had a struggle in his first season last season at Celtic Park, but does seem under Brendan Rodgers to have been making progress. A number of our recent transfers made their first Celtic Park start. Kwon had a disappointing first half prior to substitution. However, given his relatively young age and that he has only very recently been transferred from South Korea into Glasgow, quite a culture shock. However, it would be hoped over the next few weeks, months, he starts to integrate and settle down into Glasgow, into life in Scotland, with the support of O and his translator and interpreters and so on within the Celtic organisation. Going to move on to our next game. Next game, of course, is Ross County Flag Day, 12:30 kick-off on Saturday, and so we're just counting down the days to the start of the season. As things stand, we're still waiting for Alistair Johnston to return from injury, likely going to be another 6 weeks, maybe 8 weeks before he is back fully fit at right back. And so our options at right back would appear at the moment to be Anthony Ralston, although in pre-season trip the right back position has been primarily occupied by Tomoki Iwata. Other options might be Welsh moving to right back. He has played occasionally as a replacement, moving across from centre back to right back, occasionally coming on a substitution to play at right back. He is another option. However, I would go for Iwata at right back. Centre back pairings, we would have a number of options. Cameron Carter-Vickers, Carl Starfelt, Mike Narwaki, and also our two young centre-backs, Liam Scales, who of course had a great season at Aberdeen last season, was one of their key players, and that helped the Aberdeen get to third place in the Scottish Premier League last season. And of course Yuki Kobayashi, who had a difficult few months after his winter transfer window transfer to Celtic from Japan. He is a player of tremendous potential, but does seem to have struggled to settle into Glasgow and settle into his role on the left side of defence. The other positions do seem fairly set as things stand, and I would not expect any significant changes from the usual starting 11 in those other positions. And so I would predict for the game against Ross County this Saturday on Flag Day that Hart will be in goals. Right back, Tomoki Iwata. Centre back, Cameron Carter-Vickers. More likely Carl Starfelt, although I wouldn't be terribly surprised if Mike Narwaki. Do apologise for pronunciation. We will get used to how to pronounce the various new players. Left back, Greg Taylor. Midfield, Callum McGregor, more in defensive central midfield position, flanked by Rio Hatate on the right and Matt O'Reilly on the left. Brendan Rodgers has been experimenting with 3-2-3-1, various other different formations, although I would suspect that he will go with a straight 4-3-3. And so on the right, wide out, Leila Abada, tucking in more into an inside forward position rather than as winger. On the left, Dyson Maida, again, tucking in more as an inside forward rather than a true winger. And of course, spearheading the attack in the centre, Kyogo Furuhashi, who I would predict at this stage is odds-on favourite to be lead scorer in the Scottish Premier League 23-24. On the bench, we'd expect it to be Siegrist as replacement goalkeeper. For defensive cover, Liam Scales and Stephen Welsh. And moving into midfield, we have currently a number of options. Thiago Holm, who was impressive, Odin Thiago Holm, who was impressive in the testimonial match last night. Also David Turnbull, who has that ability to find that pass, great at shooting from distance, also an option for corners and from direct free kicks near to goal. And also O and Haksabanovic on the bench as attacking options, and I would also suspect that Yang will start on the bench, again providing cover wide on the right or the left, and maybe also the option, depending on Kyogo's fitness with his recurring shoulder problem, option obviously of moving O into central attack, or bringing Dyson Maida in off the left wing to play a central role, as he did to great effect on the Tour of Japan with his hat-trick. Celtic have such a strong bench that they always will have a number of options coming in off the bench. Then ongoing speculation regarding incoming transfers. Same three main names remaining on the various different message boards and internet sites, with Teti, Tierney and Livakovic all still put forward as potential signings for Celtic. Kieran Tierney situation at Arsenal had been thought to be more clear, with there having been clear-the-air talks between Tierney and with Mikel Arteta, the Arsenal manager. However, with mention of Kieran Tierney's position at Arsenal being strong, but more as a backup, There has been speculation about transfer across into Europe to Newcastle, also within the Premiership, and also mention of potential loan to Celtic. However, nothing has been finalised, still a lot of speculation. As things stand, no real definite update to the Kieran Tierney transfer situation or situation at Arsenal. However, the likeliest option for Celtic would be a loan deal to the 23-24 season, as his wages and a transfer fee would most likely be outside of Celtic's budget. Ongoing discussions regarding Tete and his release from Shakhtar Donetsk in Ukraine. Shakhtar had been quite keen to try and get some form of transfer fee or compensation fee for his release from Shakhtar. However, this would appear to have fallen through, and so Tete would be available. It would appear on a free transfer, coming in as a free agent to Celtic. Whether Celtic need Tete, who primarily is a wide player, and so would be duplicating the role of Maida, Haksabanovic, Tilio, Abada, Yang and Forrest. We appear to have very good options and good depth at our wide positions. Tete was impressive in his loan at Leicester under Brendan Rodgers previously, and is said to be a player that Brendan Rodgers is particularly keen on. I have my doubts as to whether Tete would consider a transfer to Celtic, even though it would be again under the management and training of Brendan Rodgers and his team. And so I would be more expecting him to find a new team in the English Premier League or one of the other large European leagues. Most recent rumours regarding Dominik Livakovic, the Croatian goalkeeper from Dinamo Zagreb, is that the deal with Fenerbahce has fallen through, and so he would be again available. Mention of potential transfer from Zagreb to the Spanish leagues, although the teams currently thought to be in line for his transfer are the more mid-table and lower table Spanish teams. Transfer fee is said to be around about £8 to £9 million, which is likely be at the top end of Celtic's current transfer budget. As I'm sure you're aware, Brendan Rodgers has stated that he is not expecting to have sort of a large £15-20 million signing, and is more looking for young players to develop, bring through, increase their skills and reputation, and as has been the case with players like Jota and Tierney, moving them on to higher league clubs with large profits. This has worked well in the past for Celtic, with players like Boyata and Juranovic moving on, of course, and one of the prime examples, Virgil van Dijk, coming through as a young centre-half, playing for Celtic, going on to Southampton and then on to Liverpool as the highest transfer fee for a defender. Moving back to Dominik Livakovic, Certainly, goalkeeper is very much one of the positions I think Celtic needs to most strengthen. Joe Hart certainly has played very well for Celtic in the last couple of years. However, there is a thought that at the very highest level in the Champions League and in the high pressure games within Scotland, Joe Hart may not be as strong a goalkeeper as we recover, as we require. Dominik Livakovic at the previous World Cup last Christmas, December, November time, was considered to be the number one goalkeeper in that World Cup, and so would clearly be a very good addition to Celtic's squad. And I very much hope over the next week to 10 days Celtic make final efforts to encourage Livakovic to come to Glasgow with the promise of Champions League being a primary reward for him choosing to come to Celtic. It would appear the other clubs who are currently in line for inquiring about transferring Livakovic to their clubs are not Champions League teams, and so this obviously would be an obvious carrot or inducement for him to come to Celtic. Finally, with regards to transfers, I feel that there are a couple of positions Celtic still do need to strengthen in addition to the goalkeeper position. With Alistair Johnston's ongoing injury at right back, and with Iwata currently covering at right back rather than his more favoured midfield role. Our only other backup at right fullback is Anthony Ralston, whose performances over the last few months of last season have diminished, most likely due to Alistair Johnston becoming very much a star player and a fan favourite at right back. I do feel that further strengthening at the right back position would be very important. The two choices at left back, Burnaby and Greg Taylor, not most suited for swapping to right back as cover. I see Burnaby more potentially actually being more of a left wing back or pushing forward into left midfield. Some of his better performances last season actually were when he was pushing forward into midfield and even overlapping to be the wide left player. His defensive technique and performances were not as strong as he was when he was going forward. And of course he has scored 2 goals in the pre-season, which does also show that he has that potential in the more forward positions. So I would be hoping that over the next last couple of weeks of the transfer window leading up to the end of August, that right back will be very much a position where Celtic are looking to strengthen, as having a backup for Alistair Johnston in case of injury, suspension, and also to rotate the squad and rotate the positions, particularly when we're getting into the Champions League phase of games on Tuesday, Wednesday and on Saturday, Sundays, where often player fatigue and minor knocks can be an issue. I would also very much want Celtic to strengthen the attack with a further option to support Kyogo and O in central attack, and would be hopeful that we could find a young promising striker. If we could get another Henrik Larsson for £650,000 from Holland, that would be ideal, but I'm sure our scouting network are exploring various different options. I would be keen that the option this time in that position is a European player, so that they settle more quickly into Glasgow and into the country. As things stand, there's no real obvious candidate from players who are in Scotland and England for transferring into that position, although we'd hope that our links with Man City and links with other clubs in Europe might give us an option for a young striker, 2021 and under, coming to play on loan for the season, potentially with the option to buy at the end of the season. In the past, our links with other clubs have allowed us to have Paddy Roberts, going back a number of years under Brendan Rodgers' first term as Celtic manager. More recently, Jeremy Frimpong, another player that we brought in at a very young age from youth ranks at Man City and transferred on for very large profits. And under the transfer deal previously, any further sales of Frimpong, with him currently under review by a number of the top English Premier League sides, would get Celtic further money for the transfer kitty. And I think that would be that is the end of the transfer section. Finally, for our Wednesday the 2nd of August update, it's time, with it being only 4 days to the start of the season, to predict the final 12 placings in the Scottish Premier League. Starting with number 12 and relegation, the very obvious candidate for that is St Johnstone. Had a very poor end to last season, hardly scoring any points, hardly scoring goals, were in the end very lucky to survive, and would be prime candidates for relegation this season. Had a terrible start to their season in the Viaplay Cup, with a number of embarrassing defeats to lower clubs, and so I very much doubt that Stephen McLean has the squad or the skills to keep St Johnstone up this season. Would actually be very sad for me to for St Johnstone to drop out of the Scottish Premier League, as McDiarmid Park has always been a stadium I've very much enjoyed attending, although it does have bad memories, as it was the stadium in which I unfortunately watched Stilian Petrov break his leg on a rather wet, cold, snowy evening match against St Johnstone. In 11th place, my prediction would be Ross County, similar to last season. Ross County are always going to struggle in terms of recruitment of new players and retention of any players that show skill and are successful. However, Malcolm Mackay is a talented manager with a significant experience, and did manage to keep Ross County up last season, even though it took a rather tight, close playoff match for them to survive. Moving into 10th place, Dundee, moving up from the Championship, would be an obvious candidate. Quite often when teams move up from the Championship into the Premier League, as the players are new to the division and knowledge of these players isn't so strong, they can often get off to a good start. and that is important for Dundee this season. I think they do have sufficient quality in their squad, although they have been very quiet on the transfer market. And so 10th place would be my prediction for them. 9th place, Kilmarnock. Kilmarnock again, another team who perennially are in that lower half of the league. They do have a skill of surviving. They do tend with their all-weather pitch also to have that advantage when other clubs come to play, and so Kilmarnock would be my prediction for number 9. Similarly, with the all-weather pitch at the Tony Macaroni Arena in Livingston, Livingston would be my prediction for number 8. David Martindale every season performs miracles on a very tight transfer budget, has a particular skill, it would appear, of getting teams to play together, tactically aware, good in defence, particularly hitting teams on the break, and so I would predict that Livingston will be in at number 8. Number 7, top of the bottom half, would be Motherwell. Motherwell will struggle, I think, this season with the loss of Kevin Van Veen, their star striker from last season. I think without Van Veen's goals, without Van Veen's ability up front, Motherwell would very much have struggled last season and would have been fighting the relegation battle all season. However, I think on the back of last season's success, Motherwell do have sufficient quality and depth in other positions for them to stay safely in the Premier League and nestling in at number 7. Number 6, St Mirren, a team that gave Celtic quite a lot of difficulties last season, was our first defeat last season. In a game in which I do feel Ange Postecoglou did rest too many players last season. Celtic looked disjointed, looked out of ideas, didn't seem to have the same energy and battle as we usually expect from a Celtic team. And that surprising 2-0 defeat was our first defeat of last season. St Mirren, again, like many of the clubs in the Premier League in Scotland, have not really strengthened their squads significantly. However, I would expect them to be in 6th. In 5th and 4th, we've got Hearts and Hibs. I've gone for Hibs at number 5 and Hearts at number 4. It will be very interesting to see whether Hibs' signing of the striker from Roda will be successful. He did score many goals in the Dutch league last season. £600,000-700,000 was the transfer fee, which is a significant outlay for Hibs. They hopefully will have further European games this season. They will have to overturn the 2-1 loss from last week against the club from Andorra. Hope, however, for Scottish football, for improving our coefficient for future years, that Hibs do battle through into further stages of the Conference and Europa Leagues, along with Hearts and Aberdeen. One of the disappointing things over recent years has been the underperformance of all the other teams in Scotland, in European football, apart from Celtic and Rangers Rangers' very poor performance last year offsetting their remarkable run to the Europa League final the year before. Hearts do not really seem to have strengthened their squad. Couple of signings, including recent Japanese signing, making their second Japanese player. However, with the goals of Lawrence Shankland in attack and Craig Gordon in goals, I think Hearts have sufficient quality to be fourth, with Hibs close behind in fifth. As per last season, Aberdeen in third. Barry Robson, very, very impressive final 6 months of the season, taking over after a series of very poor results under Jim Goodwin for Aberdeen. And from the start of 2023 onwards, Barry Robson very impressively, as caretaker manager and now full-time manager, resurrected Aberdeen. Aberdeen have made a number of signings this summer transfer window. No players of great note, however, building on last year's successes, would predict Aberdeen in third place. In second place, not too surprisingly, I have gone for Rangers. Rangers have had a number of players coming in, number of players going out. They have signed a couple of strikers to replace Alfredo Morelos. They've also lost Cholak off on transfer as well. Their most recent signing, Danilo, the Brazilian coming in from Holland, has a reputation as being a successful player. However, the signings Rangers have made in the striker position this season, in this transfer window in the summer, none of which appear on first viewing to be particularly impressive. I don't think any of them will rival Kyogo for lead scorer in the Scottish Premier League this season. Rangers have signed Jack Butland, a very promising young goalkeeper who came in the summer transfer window. Jack Butland has been in and around, predicted to be a great English goalkeeper, but has never really kicked on from his time as the goalkeeper in the 2012 London Olympics British team. However, on past reputation, despite the fact he's played a lot of reserve team football and been on the bench for the last couple of years, he does have the potential to be a good goalkeeper, replacing their previous expert, long-standing goalkeeper, Alan McGregor. There was some speculation with Steven Gerrard moving into management in Saudi Arabia that he may look to sign a couple of the Rangers players, such as James Tavernier, and also mention of Fashion Sakala moving off to Saudi football. However, no final decisions on either of those matters. Do think Rangers, however, will be Celtic's strongest challengers for the coming season, as per usual. It has been a considerable length of time since anybody other than Rangers has been a true rival to win the Scottish Premier League. The days of Alex Ferguson at Aberdeen and Jim McLean at Dundee United, winning cups and leagues and league cups and preventing Celtic and Rangers from dominating, are a long, long time ago. Even I was a little boy, as old as I look, I was a little boy when there were any real challengers to the big two, the old firm clubs in Scotland. I think Rangers will be challengers. With the considerable changes in their team with players coming in, players going out, and not a particularly strong pre-season for Rangers. I wouldn't be too surprised if they start a little slowly. But the keys, as often is in the Scottish Premier League, will be our 4 games against Rangers, our 2 at home and 2 away. The lack of any away supporters at both stadiums is an ongoing disappointment. And I would expect over those 4 matches that Celtic will get the majority of the points. I would be very surprised if Rangers do manage to beat Celtic at Celtic Park, and with the strength of our side and the depth of our squad, draws at Ibrox would be fully expected. And so I would at this stage predict Celtic to be the champions of the 23-24 Scottish Premier League. Due to our seeding and being a European qualified side, we're seeded in the Viaplay Cup, and we'll have Kilmarnock as our next opponent in the Viaplay Cup. Viaplay, of course, are looking to move out of Scottish football, very similar to Setanta Sport, but they have maintained their commitment for this season for the Viaplay Cup and their sponsorship of Scottish football. Whether Celtic can win the treble this season, as we did last season under Ange Postecoglou, that's more difficult to predict. Cup matches are, as per their nature, one-off games where factors such as injuries, good luck, bad refereeing decisions, even with the wonderful VAR as a backup for certain fixtures, but not all fixtures in the Cups, can be a little bit of a lottery. And so playing one team on a particularly good day for them and a bad day for us can mean that getting through the Cups can be more difficult. However, at this stage, I would say Celtic are a good bet, not that I would bet, but a good bet for being treble winners again, maintaining Brendan Rodgers' remarkable record of having 7 in a row in terms of trophies, and of course, on his first time as Celtic manager, he left for Leicester midway through the season, and Celtic managed to complete what would have been a treble with the other 2 trophies under the temporary management of Neil Lennon. Now, that is us finished for today, our Wednesday the 2nd of August update of Celtic news, transfer gossip, predictions, and so we're at an exciting time of the season, pre-season now all finished. So just the final few days of training leading up to our opening match against Ross County this Saturday, 12:30, which will be live on Sky Sports. Hoping to do daily updates of Celtic news, gossip, trying to give my angle on Celtic as we stand at the moment, Celtic in the future, and possibly also some comments and speculation on other Scottish football matters, maybe also English football matters. Hope you have enjoyed this first update. As per any of these fledgling YouTube channels, please like and subscribe, add any comments, and over the next few days I will look to respond to any of those comments. Any suggestions, constructive feedback, criticism, always fully welcome. Please do keep it constructive, keep it polite, and thank you for today, and see you again tomorrow.